All right, it's 7 o'clock. So welcome. I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of the District of Sechelt for Wednesday, May 1st. And we have an agenda in front of us. First, any conflicts in the meeting tonight? Perfect. Look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we have a delegation. We have Lorene Reed, and you have a handout. And turn on the microphone as well. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Tom and Arnelda, that you have to hear this again. Sorry. My name is Lorene Reed, and I'm with the district. I'm with the Sunshine Coast, the Rotary Club of the Sunshine Coast. Our Rotary Club has decided that it would be prudent, maybe, and in the interest of public safety, to embark on a project of installing AED devices. These are defibrillators, and they're in buildings all over our community. And if you download Pulse Point on your phone, you can pull them up and see where they are. But we don't have any outside. When I was on Bowen Island, I was told the story of a man who collapsed outside of the drugstore. The drugstore had an AED, but it was after hours, it was locked, and they couldn't get access to it. The man succumbed. So the next morning, they moved them outside, and then they started to look at where they needed them in their community. And if you go to Bowen Island, you'll see them at trailheads. They now have, in the last, I think, 18 months, installed 19 of them. And you'll see a picture being circulated because you also have to build what they call birdhouses to house these AEDs in. There was some concerns around temperatures, but that's not an issue. So we approached Mr. Yates, and I believe he's checked with municipal insurance, and through Perry Schmidt has agreed that Sechelt would probably require to start 4. And they've identified that they should be at Friendship Park, Kinnickinnick Park, Davis Bay, Wharf, and another park. Maybe. And Pender Harbor has also agreed that they needed 3 right off the hop. Gibson's has agreed that they need 3 right off the hop as well. So we have a fair number that we could get started fundraising for. They cost $1,629. They require training, and there is a unit chief with the ambulance service in Pender Harbor who has agreed to do all the training for free. She's also agreed to keep an inventory of all the AED devices on the coast, and she's agreed to look at them every year. So, and she will respond also to concerns, like if there's a problem with them, she'll go and look at them and identify them, what the problem is and who should best deal with it. So that's the first part. What I would like you to do, in actual fact, if you're willing, and I know I might have trouble with Brenda, but anyway, Rotary would like to gift these AEDs to you, and you would take over the maintenance of them because it's expensive. I have a 5-year warranty. They require battery upgrades. They require the gel pads for the defibrillation process to be checked and, have a life of their own. I understand you've had trouble with the one outside, and it cost quite a bit of money, I believe $700, but that is, I think, unusual. Do you have any questions now? Okay, I'm going to go on to my second.
Okay, I have questions about
Okay.
that. So you said we would own them, and then we would be responsible for the maintenance, so the cost of the upgrades, et cetera.
Yes.
What would that be? What would the cost be?
Well,
typically?
they have a 5-year warranty
Yeah.
on all parts and service, so, and installation stuff, all that kind of stuff. But it's the batteries. The batteries apparently are $160,
And how long do they last?
5 years.
Oh, okay.
They haven't, in Bowen Island, they haven't replaced a battery yet. So, And
Okay,
what
and then
we're
the gel
looking,
pads you mentioned too.
I beg your pardon?
You mentioned the gel pads too.
Yeah, they're the pads that you put on to
Yeah.
protect the patient from not getting burnt.
And those have to be replaced as well?
Yeah, and Cheryl will do that, and they're not expensive, $8, I think. They're not expensive.
So, but that would be our cost as well, or would Cheryl as part of hers?
Well,
piece cost
she
to
said
that?
she couldn't say that, but yes. Like they carry them in the ambulance. So she said, she saw one that was defective or had been used, she would replace it. I think that's a sort of maybe their responsibility ethically.
And then who builds the little birdhouse things?
We do.
Okay,
So
okay.
my second.
Okay, let's see if there's any other questions from Councilor Toth.
In other communities where they've installed them, do you know if they've had any problems with vandalism or tampering?
No, they've never. In Bowen, I only know about Bowen, Alton, I'm sorry. They have never had any tampering or any problems with them. I forgot to mention that they're GPS located, so if they started to move, the ambulance would know. And, if they were opened, the ambulance would know, the EHS would know.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Rowe.
So EHFS is aware, like if one gets used at midnight in Friendship Park, they're aware, right? They get a notification and they would follow that up. What was the $700 in reference to that you mentioned?
Well, I was told, don't quote me, but that you have had some trouble with the one in the foyer here, and that it had to be rebuilt or done something to it. Was it covered under warranty? Do you know, Andrew? No.
Okay.
Okay.
$700?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The ambulance said that they will do walk-bys of them. Where we want to put it in Friendship Park, I guess there's some issues with homelessness, as is there at Davis Bay. So Perry said, maybe could ambulance take a look at it? Yeah, if they're on duty, they said they would. Now, I haven't got a written commitment to that, but people are pretty responsible.
The containers are pretty hardy as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Any other questions? This end. All right.
So
Next.
because this is a public safety initiative, we wanted to couple it up with another public safety project, and it's the flotation devices. They're called rescue tubes, and we have 2 of them in our community now that were given to us by some people in Kauai. The man who founded Rescue Tube Foundation, which you can look at on the internet, and they cost all in Canadian probably $160. So we asked Perry about that, and Perry said, oh, I think that's a great idea. I identified 10 spots. So he came up with a list of 10 spots he thought that would be appropriate for them to be installed. They look pretty hardy. They've been up here now for a year and a half. Simple installation on the backside of a wharf, on the backside of you have it on a picnic bench. I don't know if any of you have seen them. We just put them in and asked forgiveness. And the man that he phoned me tonight because he's so excited. We'd ordered them through him in Kauai, and I said, how many life savings? I said on your website it says 150, but it's 2014 information. How many life savings? He said we have 180 documented life savings that we know about. So I think they're pretty successful. So you throw them like a spear and they go out, or you swim them out. They will carry 3 people. So we thought that was a pretty important place for our beaches particularly. So we're not asking you to pay for those or anything or to maintain them. That we just want to tell you that we'd like to do it. So do you have
Where's your handy dandy little thing you brought to the regional district with
my sign?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Can you pull it up on there, Ken? Oh, you're not doing that. You can. All right, I'm not at home. You can go on to Rescue Tube Foundation, and you can watch a whole video on it. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the,
RescueTubeFoundation.com.
yes, and it's out of
.org?
Hawaii. So these rescue tubes are made in North Carolina, and so the man in Hawaii would buy them and then drop them to us. Because we don't know about taxes and duty, so.
So we're looking at 20 sites, you said, or 10 sites?
10 for
10 sites.
you, and I think all told I have 17 committed from Pender Harbor and Gibson's, and I'm just waiting for the regional district to tell me what they need. So basically, I'm just asking for you to, if we gift these to you, will you assume ownership, and would you put that in writing? And then we'll start fundraising, because I can't go ahead and start fundraising for this until I know that you're on board. I have a letter of support from Dr. Dillon, Paul Dillon, letter of support from the fire department, and I'm still waiting for a letter of support from the ambulance service, but it's there. Any questions?
Any questions?
Have I covered the logistics of it? Like, do you understand why we want to do it?
Yes, I think we understand why you're looking to do it.
Okay.
I think what we should probably do is you're getting those letters.
I've got them.
You've got the letters. Submit the letters to
Okay.
staff,
Okay.
and then we could have staff come back to us with, what we need to do
Okay.
so that it can come back to us and we can move something forward.
Okay.
That work?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll try not to come back anymore.
Oh, no, we like what you bring. Yeah. Come with more. Next month. Thank you. All right, so we have two proclamations. The first one is Sechelt Water Month, May 2019. Whereas human health is dependent upon an abundant supply of pure, clean drinking water, whereas safety, quality, and abundance of water can only be safeguarded by sound environmental protection, appropriate treatment, and properly maintained distribution systems, whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure which future generations depend on, whereas each citizen of our community is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues, and whereas federal, provincial, and local governments, as well as concerned organizations, are cognizant and supportive of measures which promote safe, clean, and abundant water and responsible wastewater management. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that May 2019 shall be known as Sechelt Water Month in the District of Sechelt. And then, this is the one that Dave is here for, an Active Transportation Month, May 2019. Okay, so whereas active and alternative means of transportation such as walking, cycling, sharing vehicles, and using public transportation are available to the citizens of our community, whereas these active and alternative means of transportation provide health, wellness, and economic benefits to the individual citizens, whereas active and alternative means of transportation reduce our community's use of energy, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and reduce our healthcare costs, and whereas the District of Sechelt has identified opportunities for increased active and alternative transportation in our community strategies and plans, and whereas the Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast Society is organizing and sponsoring a series of events and activities in May involving governments, businesses, organizations, and individuals for the purpose of promoting the use of active and alternative transportation. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that May 2019 shall be known as Active Transportation Month in the District of Sechelt. So I want to thank TRAC for moving this initiative forward. I'd also like to thank the staff, our staff here particularly, who've taken this on. I remember a couple of weeks ago, our CAO was looking for staff, and most of them weren't around. They were in the meeting planning what we were going to do for the month. So there's all kinds of initiatives coming forward. I look forward to taking part and seeing where it goes And I'd like to see at the end of the month what we've actually accomplished. I think that'll be quite interesting. So thank you for all you're doing.
I'll take my helmet off
You
now.
can take your helmet off, okay. So we have adoption of the minutes of the council meeting of April 17th. So I'd look for a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions? So all those in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Okay, so let's move on to Committee of the Whole minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, April 24th. On a motion to adopt, moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions in that meeting? All those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move into bylaws. We have item 8.1A. This is the adoption of the Housing Agreement Bylaw 576, 2018, Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society, Green Court, 5583 Ocean Avenue. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And did you want to address this? This is for adoption at this point.
Yes, it's bylaw 556 for adoption was dealt with or given first, second, and third reading on March 20th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, any questions from council? So this is the Green Court proposal that's going to be going on the corner of Ocean and Medusa. That's right. So once this is adopted, if that's the way it goes here, what is the next step for this project?
So the housing agreement is a key condition of the rezoning. So once this is in place, we will bring back, probably May 15th, I would think, the bylaw, the OCP and zoning amendment bylaw for adoption. And then they can proceed to subdivision and building permit.
Very good. All right, so we have a recommendation printed here that we look at adopting this housing agreement bylaw. Is there someone who'd like to move that recommendation? Moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to the bylaw. This is on page 27. This is Housing Agreement Bylaw 576, 2018, Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society, Green Court, a bylaw to authorize the District of Sechelt to enter into a housing agreement with the Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society pursuant to Section 483 of the Local Government Act. And would someone like to move adoption? Moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you to the Lions Club for moving this forward. This is a project that's very much needed in our community. All right, so item 8.2, this is the Biosolids Disposal Fees Amendment Bylaw number 483-2, 2019. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And Director Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on April 17th, Council gave first, second, and third readings to the Biosolids Disposal Fee Amendment Bylaw. What this bylaw does is increase the disposal fee by 15%. It also increases the refund to property owners within the District of Sechelt accordingly, so their fee doesn't change overall relative to the previous bylaw. The reason for the increase is simply to allow us to cover the cost of the septic service that we provide. And one other thing I should point out is when the bylaw was being read, one amendment was to change it to the Sechelt septic disposal fee amendment bylaw, and that will be done on adoption. So that's why it's coming forward as biosolids. When you adopt it, you also adopt that amendment to change the name.
Thank you. I know there were some questions going back and forth about that. All right, would someone like to move that we adopt this? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So if we move to the bylaw, 8.2B on page 41. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 483-2, 2019, a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt biosolids disposal fees bylaw number 483, 2009. And I'd look for a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then we move on to 8.3A, page 43. This is the 2019 to 2023 Financial Plan Bylaw number 581, 2019. First motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And back to Director Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this bylaw is the 2019 to 2023 financial plan. It was received 3 readings from council on April 17th. This bylaw is to set the financial plan for the next 5 years through deliberations. The financial plan has $14 million in revenue for 2019, offset by $12.7 million in expenses, plus some amortization, debenture debt, et cetera. The sewer fund, about $3 million in revenue, $1.9 million in expenses, then amortization and principal payments. I should point out no levy increase for sewer, an 8.45 levy increase for general operating funds. Also includes a sewer spending of $12.2 million in capital funding for 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move ahead with this, are there any questions on this one? I had one question. So 2022, 2023 budget, last item in here. All right, let me get back to the page. Page 56. This is for reclaimed water treatment and distribution. It indicates that grants and contributions would be the funding for this. So if that's the funding, we're looking at 2022. If we moved it up, how would that impact our financial plan? How would it impact the work plans, et cetera, given that we're looking at grants and contributions as the source funds for this?
I guess it would be for the design work, which would be the work done in 2022. Really, I guess if a grant opportunity became apparent, we could certainly bring that to council and seek direction whether you wanted us to go for it. We could then amend the financial plan at that time with the intention that the design work would be done in the first year and the construction the following year.
Given the water situation that we have, I'm just concerned that this is a long way out. And it would be nice to be able to start doing some of this work earlier. Could we amend this at this point? What would happen? Would we have to rescind third reading? Could we do third and adopt at this meeting, or would we then have to postpone and do adoption at another meeting?
You would have to rescind third reading, read it third as amended, and then you would have to wait the 24 hours. Under the charter, you can't adopt it for up to 24 hours.
Okay, Councillor McLean.
I see your intent of bringing this forward. Given that we don't have any grants for it right now, the approach I'd like to see is keep an eye out for the grants. And if there is one that is a nice fit, we can do a budget amendment at any point in the upcoming year. So I'd say that now is not the time to change this. We can do it at any point moving forward. There's no urgency on it at this point.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to indicate is that this is a project that's important to us, and that, staff should be keeping their eyes out for grants, and council, right, for what we can do to work with this. Okay, so recommendation number 2 is that council proceed with adoption of District of Sechelt 2019-2023 Financial Plan Bylaw number 581. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved and seconded. All in favor of the recommendation? Thank you. So item 8.3B, page 45. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 581, 2019. And this should be, hang on, should be a little different wording in there, isn't it? District of Sechelt 2019-2023 Financial Plan Bylaw number 581, 2019. A bylaw to adopt the financial plan for the years 2019 to 2023. Would someone like to move adoption? Move adoption, second. Any comments at this point before we adopt? Councillor McLean.
I just wanted to provide a comment on the overall budget as it's gone so far. I'm going to be in support. It's a good budget, but not a great budget. There's still more that we can do to make this even better serving the people of Sechelt. The good things in it, we're building critical infrastructure like Trail Avenue, providing funding to create a subdivision bylaw and review our OCP. And these are things that will help us build our community for the long-term future, and ensure that we can all work together to build the community. This budget's a little heavy on capital spending, on new projects. I think we need to keep an eye on that and make sure that we are dedicating the resources needed to repairing our existing infrastructure and not building completely new infrastructure. So I'd like that to be something that we keep an eye on in the next year's budget. We are hopefully adopting a strategic plan today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the strategic plan inform the budget, and working together to achieve that strategic plan through a budget. So I think with that knowledge of the long-term future with our strategic plan and a little bit of experience under our belts and a better understanding of the operations and the service levels that we want to provide as a district of Sechelt, I think we can deliver a great budget in 2020, take it from good into great next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make any comments? I'd like to thank staff for all the work that you put into this and for putting up with us as we went through and asked our questions and made our mistakes and made you jump through hoops. I'd also like to thank the community. The community actually came out a lot more this year than what I've seen in the past number of years with regards to the budget. And we got lots of emails, lots of phone calls. It's good to see the community involved and letting us know the direction that they want to see it go in. And I know that some of the ideas and plans that came forward initially, we worked with staff to make some adjustments to reduce some of the asks that came forward. And I think over the next year, I agree with Councillor McLean, over the next year as we learn more and work more with our own strategic plan, we're going to start seeing some reflections in the budget as well. So thank you. Thank you for all the work. So let's look for who would like to, let's look for a vote on the adoption of the financial plan. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you. I'll move on to the tax rate bylaw number 582, 2019, item 8.4A on page 58, and a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Director
Thank you,
Stewart.
Madam Mayor. So with the recent adoption of the 2019 to 2023 financial plan, it would now be appropriate to set the tax rates for 2019. This bylaw did get 3 readings as well on April 17th. It sets the tax rates for general municipal purposes. The 8.45% was spread equally along all property classifications. This bylaw also includes the tax rate for the regional hospital district, the regional district, and the regional recreation levy, as they provide us with a requisition and we determine the levy per property classification.
All right, any questions from council? So we'll move to 8.4B on page 59. District of Sechelt 2019 tax rates bylaw number 582, 2019. A bylaw for establishing tax rates for municipal, hospital, Sunshine Coast Regional District, and Sunshine Coast Regional Recreation purposes for the year 2019. And I'd look for a motion to adopt the bylaw. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. So now we get to move to item 10.1. This is our Sechelt 2019 to 2022 strategic plan. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And does anybody want to speak to this? Me? Okay. Perfect. So if we go to page 64, we start with our strategic plan. This plan, we've spent a fair amount of time over the last number of months as a council. Hopefully this reflects what we've heard from the community during the election campaign and since. We have our vision, our mandate, and our core values. Our core values, we believe in being representative of the community as a whole, responsive to changing needs, technologies, and challenges, respectful of differing needs, cultures, and the land we live on, accountable for the decisions we make, and honest in our community. So we have a number of, there's a context, and then we have a number of, we have 5 of them in here. 7 strategic priorities. They've changed, moved around. There were, the last version I saw had 6, I think. So first one is promoting economic prosperity. So we're setting up a couple of committees. One is going to be for airport, one is going to be for the harbor. We're looking at an economic development committee as well to support Sechelt moving forward. We recognize the dependence we have in our community on taxation from residential properties, and this is acknowledging that we're looking to make a difference in that area. Enhancing fiscal sustainability, this comes down to looking at how do we spend the dollars that we actually collect. So, I mean, things in there we're talking about are like risk mitigation strategy. So how do we make sure that what we put in place doesn't create more risk for our community and cost us more down the road? Also looking at asset management. I think our staff have been working on that a lot in the last while. There's more work to do. I think we're finding, as the regional district is finding, that not all of our assets are necessarily reflected in the documentation we have. I know that we inherited infrastructure from other levels of government, and sometimes what they told us we had isn't actually what we have. So we're working on that and getting that reflected. We're also looking at the state of our infrastructure and the fact that it costs us money to renew that. So we need to work with our staff, work with the community to see how we can do that. But it also looks at how do we plan for that on the front end. So how do we plan for potentially natural assets? So we're going to be looking at that a bit. Enhancing community livability, this is things like walking trails, housing types, community safety and well-being, festivals and our events. Then managing growth effectively, we're looking at updating within this term our zoning bylaw, our subdivision and development control bylaw, and our OCP. We're also looking at updating the liquid waste management plan. There are more areas in our community that need to be hooked up to sewer, and it will also impact how the development happens. So there's a lot of work to do around that, to tighten up those documents, to make it easier for the community and the developers to be able to work together to bring us the types of growth that we need and want in the community while maintaining the community's livability. Revitalizing the downtown, we're going to be looking at working with the Downtown Business Association and Sechelt Chamber of Commerce and the landowners to bring more life to our downtown. We need that to happen. Improving governance and communications. We have our communications managers looking at doing a branding or a branding this year with the district. The committee is already in operations. What else have we got in here? Communications around our communications plan, public participation. We're actually out asking the community right now, how do you want to be notified about what's going on? How do you want to be kept informed? And we're going to look at working with that and putting processes in place to make sure that that happens. I like the 6.5 in here, identifying opportunities for shared services and projects with stakeholders and other governments. I have to say I'm really enjoying working with the other governments on the Sunshine Coast. Provincial and federal, yes, as well, but For example, I got invited to an event tomorrow, and I phoned the other heads of governments and invited them along, and they do the same with me. So we get phone calls back and forth, so that it's not just what's good for Sechelt, but it's what's good for the Sunshine Coast. And we try and keep each other in the loop about all kinds of things. So I really like that. If something benefits the regional district, it benefits Sechelt. If something happens in Sechelt, it benefits the Sunshine Coast as well. So it's really nice to see that collaboration working together. Improving operations and infrastructure is number 7. This is the last one on here. So in here we're looking at how do we improve the programming of the Water Resource Center and develop a strategy for the use of the reclaimed water, which is why I was bringing that up in the strategic plan. We're looking at improving the supply, storage, and delivery of water, water conservation measures, and we're going to be looking at what we as a district can do to enhance what's going on at the regional district, but as a municipality. Our Parks and Open Space Master Plan, we want to look at implementing that more. Our Parks and Public Works Operations Building needs to be built during this term. And then we're also looking at a strategy for fully utilizing the district-owned community facilities. We have some amazing facilities in our community. We need to see how we can ensure that they're used to their maximum, because revenue that comes in from those as well will help support and reduce the taxes that we have to charge the residents. So, is there anything anybody else on the council would like to add about the strategic plan? Councillor McLean.
Yeah. This is just overall, I think, a really great document. The process started out with some really lofty goals from us at the council table. And I feel like through the conversations that we've had over the 6 months, we've taken time to really make these operational. So these are still lofty. It's going to take a lot of work to achieve everything on here. But I believe that we can in the next 4 years. And I think that's the perfect type of strategic plan, is you're going to need to work hard. But if you can achieve everything on here, I think the district of Sechelt is going to be in a really good place. And it's going to be a great place to live for the next 50 years if we can really make progress on all of these. So I just want to thank everyone at the council table, the staff table, consultants, everyone that came in to help make this happen. And I'm in full support of this whole document.
All right, anybody else? Councillor Scott.
I'm excited that this turned out really well. I kind of echo the comments there. It's lofty, but it's definitely workable. And a lot of the things on here I'm pretty passionate about, especially the airport and the harbor and stuff like that. So I'm excited to get moving on it and make it workable.
Thank you. Anybody else?
What they said.
What they said? Okay.
I will say something.
Okay.
I think the first 6 months, what I've been actually most appreciative, or what I have appreciated the most, is actually sitting with these people at the table. And we don't always agree, but I'm really looking forward to the next 3.5 years working with everybody. And same can be said for staff. And one of the things that I was most concerned about with the strategic plan was that anybody who hasn't been involved in what we've been discussing would be able to read this and have a clear understanding of what we were after. And I think the language that's been used in this document is great. And I concur with what my colleagues have to say. And so thank you to staff for all the hard work. I'm glad we took the time. I'm glad we didn't feel the pressure on October 21st to get something out there, because it felt like it should be done. But we're here for the long haul, not the short haul. So thank you to staff and everybody at the table.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, so there's a recommendation that the Sechelt 2019-2022 strategic plan be approved. I'd like to move that. Councillor McLean, Councillor Rowe, all those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to item 10.2 on page 72. This is Olson Electric Airport lease. A motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And Director Stewart.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is to recommend an amendment to the lease we have with Olson Electric for the property they have up at the airport. On April 2018, a lease was entered with Olson Electric for a 5-year lease with a 5-year option to renew. Olson Electric approached us and asked if council would consider amending it to allow for 2 10-year extensions. Really, what they want to do is they've done a fair bit of work on the building already. They'd like to do more. They want to improve the front of the building. I believe they want to pave it to get down some dust control. They want to add some solar panels and make it really more of a showcase opportunity for solar electricity. So with that investment they're putting into the building, they'd like the assurance of having a longer lease with the district. Therefore, we're in support of that and seek council's approval to amend the lease to allow for 2 10-year extensions.
All right, any questions? Councillor Scott.
So with this lease, the tax bill being covered by the district as they make their improvements and increase the value of this property, and the taxes go up, we're going to see a net decrease in our lease return. Correct?
Actually, essentially, no. We hadn't intended to register the lease, so really it's more of an occupation. It's a lease with the company to allow them to be on our property. It's not on the building itself. So in fact, because it's municipally owned property, it's actually not taxable.
Oh,
If the lease is registered, it becomes taxable because it title moves to
did not understand that. Okay, that helps in the clarity.
Any other questions? Councillor Lamb.
The the monies that's collected for this lease, where does that money go? Does it go into the airport reserves, or is there an airport reserves?
It would if we generated a profit. So yeah, any money earned on the airport property must actually remain within the use for the airport. So once we've taken off expenses for running the airport, any profit or surplus would remain in a reserve to be used on the airport properties.
So the tenant would be responsible for the total maintenance of the building. If there's a leak in the roof, they replace the roof, siding, painting, windows, the whole thing.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. What is the size of the building? Do we know?
It's approximately 3,500 square feet.
3,500 square feet. Okay.
Any other questions?
So is there a water, they pay, the district of Seashore would pay any land taxes that were due on that, but like a water connection and all that, do they pay the regional district for that?
I'm not even sure they have water to that property at this point. But they would pay it otherwise, yes.
They would cover their
think,
all their own utilities? Yeah.
Ben sent an email saying they're responsible for all those.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Any other questions, Councillor Lamb? Okay. So as a recommendation, would someone like to make that recommendation or a different recommendation? Recommendation that's printed is that the original lease with Olson Electric Limited be amended with the option to renew for 2 additional terms consisting of 10 years for each additional term. Okay, Councillor Rowe moved, seconded. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McLean.
I have a lot of concern about the length of this lease. It'd be 30 years total. That's a long time. I don't know what the airport operations are going to look like in 30 years. And I don't want to limit what the airport can be because of this one property. Maybe we need it for something else. And maybe it can be used in another way that's not associated with the airport to a better use. So currently, I'm in favor of keeping the current lease as is, with the current 10-year term, which I think is plenty enough time for a business to make investments into the property as needed. And 30 years is just too long to commit. We don't know what's going to happen with that larger plan of the airport at this time.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Rowe?
Just for clarity, is the 5-year extension would be replaced with the 10? So would the total be 25 years?
Yes, that's correct. It's 25 years.
Okay.
We had recently extended a lease for one of the other properties up there too, did we not? Blackcomb?
Blackcomb has made a request to extend the lease. That hasn't come forward yet, but it will be soon.
We did extend one of them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other questions about the recommendation and this lease? Councillor Scott?
My main concern was just the taxes, as far as whether, if we're on the hook for that, even on the SCRD side. So you've alleviated my concern of that. I think as a business who's going to probably invest $200,000 or $300,000 or more into this building, I think it's fair for us to step up and give them the lease extension. As far as the airport expansion, and there's nothing on that property that's going to impede the extension of the runway or anything along those lines. And there's lots of other land that we can move other areas that's undeveloped up there. So I'm fine with this now.
Okay, any other comment? Councillor Kuster?
Well, that was my concern or just question. Where is this building in relationship to, and how it would affect? So I think Councillor Scott has answered that, and I'm in favor of it as well.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Rowe?
Just a question. Why 2 times 10 years? Can we, as opposed to a 20-year? There must be a rule.
No, it just allows both parties the option to choose after the 15 years. If it doesn't work for us or doesn't work for them, either side could choose.
So we're not in for a 25-year marriage if it's not working out after 15?
No, in fact, after 5, you could stop, and then
Okay.
it's whether you want to extend the options or not.
Any other questions? Would someone like to make the recommendation? Moved? Seconded? All in favor? Any opposed? And would you like that recorded? Please? Thank you. Yes, please. All right, 11.1, councillor reports. Who wants to go first? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I suppose in the last 2 weeks, the most notable thing for me was attending the annual Day of Mourning for Workers, where I laid a flower for my cousin Ken, who was killed several years ago in a forestry accident. After lunch break, Nick Simons and myself were speakers at a ceremony where the announcement was made that Wormy Lake will officially be known as Fair Lake. I also attended the annual Business Improvement Area Conference in Surrey. I just came back this afternoon, where we heard some great speakers talk about changing cities, placemaking, public safety improvements. We did a walking tour of the Surrey city center area, including their tent city street, and how they've cleaned that up and gotten people the help they've needed. We also did a tour of Municipal Hall, where we learned about their Vision Zero campaign to engineer their streets and engineer their city to prevent motor vehicle collisions, injuries, and deaths. Since May is now Water Month in Sechelt, I will say that I installed a water meter last month at the same time that I did my hot water tank. As a family of 3, without changing our consumption habits, we've been averaging 95 liters per person per day. Our highest consumption date was 212 liters per person, and our lowest was 53. So to hear that our average consumption on the Sunshine Coast is 440 liters per person per day is kind of crazy to think about. And I'm actually hoping to make that consumption data public at some point, including what the costs are if I were paying a metered rate. So just for some education. Thank you.
Go to the other end, Councillor Kuster, and then we'll leapfrog back and forth.
Okay, well, in the last couple weeks, I ate a lot of turkey and chocolate. I attended a couple meetings, but I really don't have anything new to report. I did quickly want to mention the Youth Interact Club on the Sunshine Coast, who in the last 2 weekends canvassed and also collected a lot of pop bottles and raised over $1,000 so far. They still have more to do. It's going to help probably a couple kids in Kenya, so it was pretty cool. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
I got to go on a tour of that Rain City with the facility with a number of the councillors. I was really impressed. It exceeded my expectations. I'm excited for the community. I'm excited for the people that are going to get to live there. Just good things all around. It's an amazing facility, and if you guys haven't seen it, definitely go have a look. Great people running it. It's just amazing. This past weekend, the Air Cadets had an exercise up at the airport, and I volunteered flying them around on Sunday with another pilot. A lot of these kids have never been up in an airplane before, so it's exciting for me to share the joy of flight and let a 12-year-old kid sit there and fly the airplane by himself and grinning from ear to ear. I got to thank the district of Sechelt that allows the Air Cadet group to use the area on the grass behind the airport there. So there's a squadron from Squamish there as well. So they run the whole weekend, and it's a great youth program, and highly recommend it for anybody whose grandkids or kids want to try it out.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Whatever. Okay. I guess last week I had a chance to tour the BC Housing project over on High Tide. It's the first time I'd been through it, and it's quite a nice facility. And the people that are there that showed us through the building are actually the managers that are going to run the building, and they've been actually very proactive from the sounds of it with the community, the people close by there. So they've invited them in to show them through the complex, and then have been willing to go to community meetings to share their feedback on what the facility is going to do and hopefully how it'll benefit our community. So do you want me to do my regional board? Sure. Okay, so it's been kind of busy at the regional board. We've had quite a few meetings there. So I attended a hospital board meeting there where we received the audited statements for the hospital. And the auditor was very, he was happy with the results of, there was nothing that showed up that was out of the ordinary. Transportation Advisory Committee, we talked about coordinating work being done when they're digging up the main roads. Usually one guy goes ahead and digs the road up, and then, the regional district will come in, put a water line in, and then 2 weeks later, Hydro comes in and digs that up again. So they're just looking at trying to coordinate different projects. And then once again, Handy Dart, they were looking at getting more accessibility, getting different vehicles and obviously people need it. Yeah. So, and then the town of Gibson's and Ministry of Transport they're hoping to get together with the Suncoaster Trail to look at different ideas of how we could, or how they could upgrade Reed Road to make it safer, and because it is becoming it's more of a major transport route now than it used to be. And then the regional board. So we reviewed the outcomes of spending money on the consultants for the water options that we've come up there, that we've looked at. I guess they've looked at it in the past, and where do we go from there? We're looking at setting consistent standards for watering during different stages of water, the water restrictions. And then we were looking at setting up a solid waste management committee. The Sechelt landfill site is scheduled to close, I guess, within 7 years, and so there's got to be some major changes made there. And then the Church Road well drilling. So I think we've applied. We have to apply for a water license, so it's a matter of getting a contractor to do the drilling and then apply for the water license. And it sounds like we're going to get some help with that. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Okay. I just wanted to speak to the High Tide project just from a bit of a different lens. It's a great building, and there's great people that are looking after it. And I'm really appreciative of the community of Sechelt for being receptive to this project. That's not always what they find in other communities. And, these look after our most vulnerable people. How they became vulnerable, it's really at that point too late to even argue or have the discussion around that. So I think when it comes to homelessness or drug use and all sorts of other things that are going on out there that people aren't comfortable with talking about, we need to be able to be comfortable to have those conversations. And when you have a facility like the supportive housing that actually comes with support and with supervision, that is actually what you want in your community, as opposed to situations where vulnerable people are trying to survive on the street and may do whatever it takes to survive. So I'm really just walking through and having more discussions with Nick around the homelessness advisory committee table, as well as with regards to that project. I'm really looking forward to see what I know there's going to be a difference of what we see in our emergency department, because the two will go hand in hand. And that's, just a selfish outcome, but what that means in translation is that those most vulnerable are actually going to receive some support. So thank you to the community of Sechelt. I don't know how many people are watching YouTube tonight, but way to go, team. Some other things, I just wanted another project I'm involved with the Community Resource Center and the Seniors Planning Table is the Caregiver Support Group. And just a quick update on that. They're just having print materials done, and they're going to be ready to actually launch the support group. So they'll be going out to all the physicians' offices and the library and where, all those public places that we leave information. And this won't be just for people who are living and caring for people with dementia, but other chronic illnesses as well. And they'll be able to receive one-on-one counseling and support as the first part of the project. And then there'll be other pieces within that support group ongoing. So that's a really exciting project that they have been successfully moving forward with. And the District of Sechelt has given funding to the Seniors Planning Table in the past and currently, and they are very appreciative of that. The other piece that they've been successful in getting was a $95,000 grant for a community law advocate, and he is in the process of doing his last few courses to get up and running. He'll work with a local lawyer and be able to support people who need basic law advice or help with, things like filling out disability forms. The government does not make it easy for people to go through the process as far as GIS, disability, all sorts of things. So coming from a background working in community, that's a huge draw on our resources. So he's going to be able to work with the social workers and really support people a lot better in our community. So that was very good news. So the community resource and the seniors planning table often battle with sort of what their identity is, and there's oftentimes a bit of a rub between them and other seniors groups. And in actual fact, they do very different different things. Like they're not providing activities, but they're doing more community planning around what seniors need. I went up to Earth Day in Powell River on Easter Monday in the pouring rain at Willingdon Beach, but we had our tent next to the Let's Talk Trash people who we saw at AVICC. So I spent a lot of the day talking with them again, and I don't know, has there question for the SCRD types, did we reach out to them with regards to, looking at something similar on the coast as the program they provide? I was curious around that. They have it's really a community outreach and education program that they do, but they do it to the nth degree in that they have a portable dishwasher trailer that they can bring to events, so you don't have to use you can use plates, and they bring it all. They've got some really innovative ideas, so I sure would like to engage them somehow, whether it's at the district level or the SCRD level. And on May the 8th, if we are done Committee of the Whole in time, I challenge all my colleagues to come walk with your doc tour as part of active transportation. It's walk with your doc, but it's walk with your physician at Mission Point Park at 5:15. They're going to walk along the seawall and back. So that's what we're going to be doing after Committee of the Whole. Oh, I'm chairing the meeting. Well, it's going to move right along then, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Councillor McLean.
So I do want to recognize that it is Active Transportation Month. I've ridden my bike to Municipal Hall twice today, so I'm hoping to keep that up. My personal goal is to do more active transportation than I do in my car. And I'm fortunate that I have a car to be able to do it, to have that choice. Some people don't. And really, I think more people should be taking transit, walking, and getting more active. We have a lot of transportation problems here on the coast that could be mitigated by more people using active transportation modes. So I'm hoping to set a good example for people myself and do what I can to reduce some of the loads on our highways and our ferries and on our parking lots, and hopefully improve my health while I'm at it. I do want to talk about I attended the St. Hilda's redevelopment meeting. So St. Hilda's is looking at doing something. They essentially have land, and they're wondering what can they do with that land. So we had an open discussion, and they're still willing to take feedback from the community. So if anyone does have ideas with what they could do with some of their land, you can talk to me and I'll forward it on. But at the end of the day, a group of community members met, and we said that what St. Hilda's does with their land, the parish needs to be their project. This is something that the parish can give back to the community, so it needs to focus on the parish there, and it's their project in helping the community. So, St. Hilda's, like, on the church land. So yeah, looking forward to see what comes out of that. But at this point, they're still exploring options.
All right, so let's see. Sechelt Volunteer Fire Department AGM. Councillor Toth and I attended that. They were surprised to see us there because they don't have people come to their AGM. They thought we were lost. It was interesting to hear about their plans for a new fire truck. So you can get just a standard run-of-the-mill fire truck, or you can actually custom design your fire truck. So because of what they use it for here, they did a custom design. So they took a year and they had a committee and they put plans together, picked out what they wanted, and then recently the fire chief and a few others, I think with 5 of them, I think they said 4 of them, went to to the place where they build these. He said it's huge. It's the biggest company in the world for fire trucks. They went there and they spent a week with the engineers going over the plans. He said it was like a big toy store. They got to drive different fire trucks and check out all kinds of different things. So they've designed their truck. And that's going to be built. It'll take about a year. And then it'll come here. And it will then have one of the older fire trucks get retired. So our fire station, Sechelt Fire Department, has got the highest rating that any volunteer fire department can have. Because they have a high rating, it means that our insurance premiums are lower, right? So there's a direct correlation between the level of training and the status that they have and our insurance rates. So they've got the highest that they can have. They can deal with hazardous materials. They can do indoor fires. They're the top on the Sunshine Coast. So if any fire happens on the Sunshine Coast that requires expertise beyond what one of the other fire departments can do, Sechelt will be there. So it was an interesting time. They're looking to save up for some other equipment that's going to be going on. Another thing they talked about was their training yard up on Mason Road. So they have quite a facility up there, and it's to the point now where they actually have fire departments from the Lower Mainland coming up here to train because they don't have this type of facility down on the Lower Mainland. So they're actually looking to put some more money into that and expand that, and that would actually be another source of revenue for them. Right? So they're really looking at that. The other fire departments on the Sunshine Coast as well use it, but it belongs to Sechelt. I met with the president of the Botanical Gardens, and he informed me of some of their plans. They have 40 acres up there, and only a quarter of it right now is developed. They're going to be doing some more work on the parking area and the gates, etc. They've got some big plans coming forward. I also attended on the Saturday the Norco demonstration at Coast Gravity Park. Now, I'd never been there, so I took the opportunity to go up there and watch the lineup and watched how they get up to do the runs and stuff. The fellow from Norco has been with them for about 20 years. It's a Canadian company. They're based out of Burnaby. They're the biggest in Canada. They are now going down into the States. And while they've had a presence down there for a number of years, they're actually looking at raising their profile down there. They wanted to have a picture with me. And he said it was the second time in 20 years they'd ever had a mayor come to any of their events. So I was kind of surprised by that. On the weekend here, I also attended the celebration of life for Anthony Pike. He's known as Tony Pike. He passed away. He's the father of Trevor Pike, who's our fire chief now. And Tony Pike was the fire chief two times before. Tony was with the fire department for 23 years. Prior to that, he worked for the Forest Service. And he was stationed on the Sunshine Coast. They wanted him to move into Vancouver. He didn't want to go. He wanted to raise his family here, so he stayed here and got involved with other things. He started a construction company, etc. The place was packed. It was at the Botanical Gardens. Over the years, he's been involved for the whole time with the Rotary, with the Coast Car Co-op, no, Coasters Club. What is it, Car Coasters? Yeah, Coasters Car Club, that one, whatever. That one, and the fire department. So all three groups were well represented there. And they got up and told stories about his life. It was a very good time. I attended one day at the BIABC conference. That's the Business Improvement Area Conference down in Surrey. And Councillor Toth he toured their municipal hall, their new one, and so arranged for me to actually get in to see their council chambers. Their council chambers are set up as a performance center as well. It seats 200 in the room itself. It has, oh my goodness, they did a tour with us. It was just the three of us, Councillor Toth and I and the fellow there, and he said it is well booked. The building's designed so that the lobby can also be rented, and they have all kinds of events out there as well. He also told us the things they did well and the things that they would have improved on. One he mentioned was the freight elevator. Two things kind of go together, storage and the freight elevator. So not enough storage, so they had to buy some risers. They were given a gift basically of some risers, but they didn't have any place to store them, so they have to store them in the basement. But the freight elevator isn't big enough. You can only bring one stand up at a time because they have to wedge them in kind of corner to corner. So he said if they did it again, they'd build more storage and a bigger freight elevator. But it's a very well set up facility. They have a catering kitchen as well with extra wide counters. It's very nice. We've got some ideas if we ever decide to go that way. Oh, the piano on stage. Okay, there's a piano on stage. You mentioned that before. There is a ramp to get up to the stage. Not quite wide enough to move the piano. It's about 4 inches too narrow. So they have to keep the piano on the stage at every council meeting. So you go into the council meeting at the back left corner, there's a big grand piano. All right, I think that's it for me on that. SCRD, you've read in the paper probably and heard on the radio, Infrastructure Services Committee meeting, most of the agenda was focused on water. So I'm going to reiterate some of the key points in that. So for the Chapman Lake water supply expansion, the SCRD has spent $400,000 in studies and preparation, believing that they would get approval for that. Because it's not going to be going ahead, that's been put in as a capital expenditure. It's now having to be moved out of capital and has to come out of the operations reserve instead. So you'll see the operational reserve move down. Because we're not moving ahead with that and some of the other projects aren't ready to go, the siphon system needs some work. It wasn't designed or built for a multi-year purpose. It requires staff to also then escalate through the water stages more rapidly because it can only be used at stage 4 and only allows for 200 liters per second to be diverted. So they have to hold some of the water back in Edwards Lake initially so that when the siphon starts, there's actually sufficient water to have the siphon function. Also, monitoring and operation of the siphon has to be done on site. Can't be operated remotely, so it requires more staff time. And then over time, the siphon's been used a few years now, it's actually shifted a bit downstream, which means there's less water accessible. It hasn't been significantly different, but they don't know if that's going to change over time. And because of the siphon and the fact that it's temporary, it has additional environmental monitoring requirements. So they've asked for and been granted an additional $50,000 for use of the siphon for this year. And then just a tidbit, it takes 12 hours for water released from Chapman Lake to reach the water treatment plant. So, you know, when they let it go up there, 12 hours to come down. Snowpack. This will impact our water availability this summer. As of April 1st, the Chapman snow course was down 34% from the historic average. The Edwards snow course was down 45% from the historic average for April. So the frequency and intensity of the rain events in the Chapman Creek watershed during the raining of the spring and summer will actually be the primary drivers for the water supply availability this summer. So hope it rains. Today started the drought management plan. It was implemented today. And this plan was modified recently at the regional district. It prohibits lawn watering at stage 2. So that's new. While it allows watering of food, so fruit trees and food, up to stage 4. And there are no restrictions if you use a handheld hose with a shutoff nozzle, handheld container, or micro drip irrigation. Then they met with the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and the province has come out with a program where they work with our agricultural users, so they're going to do an agricultural land use inventory and a water demand model. So they're going to look at agriculture and use of water. It's a partnership with the regional district. The regional district's cost will be $2,500. The field work is going to be done in July and August of this year with a report back in late 2019. So that will also help inform how much water we actually need for agriculture. Corporate Administrative Services Committee, it was focused on the financial status, and Councillor Lamb talked about the hospital district. Well, we did the same thing on the SCRD side. BDO presented the audit report for 2018. Staff then also requested that the board give input into the budget process and what they'd like to see different for next year. So we did that. They talked about gas tax funding, operating, and capital reserves as well. One of the things you'll note if you look at the regional district, they have a lot of gas tax fund money sitting there, about $5 million that they haven't spent. But what they had done in a number of years ago was they used the gas tax funds to build trails and bike paths, extending the highway, for example, and putting trails along, or, bike paths along the edge of the highway. A few years ago, it's probably about 3 years ago, it was actually recognized that while all municipalities or all regional districts in the province were using it for that, it actually did not fit the requirements of the gas tax funding criteria. One of the criteria is you have to own the land that you're actually doing the improvement on. They don't own the highway, and they don't own the right-of-way, like where they were putting these trails. So there's actually a committee through AVICC and through UBCM, so Union of BC Municipalities, working with the province and the federal government to look at modifying that criteria so that these trails can move ahead. So that's in process. Looks like there's a pilot project going on right now. When that's done, then you'll see that some of these funds that they've actually accumulated will be going to put some of these bike paths in, if that works its way out. So that money's sitting there. The last one, 2 more. It was approved to use funds for community engagement on the water plan for 2019. And phase 3 of the raw water reservoir capital project was approved at a cost of $327,532. So phase 1 and 2 of the raw water reservoir were actually desktop studies. What phase 3 is actually getting out in the field and verifying the information that was put forward from the desktop studies to determine which of the potential sites for reservoirs actually are feasible. And then the final thing is the committee approved prorated waiving of utility billings for 2019 for the Sea-Watch properties. So that's the SCRD report. Council correspondence. We have 2 items for receipt. Who'd like to move receipt? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And anything to be followed up? Councillor McLean.
On the email from the SDBA regarding the sign bylaw, I understand that there's a draft created for the sign bylaw. Are you able to provide a timeline on when that could be coming back to us, or are you not at that stage yet?
Through the chair, I finished it today. I'm meeting with SDAB tomorrow, so we'll have some discussion around that, and then we'll do some stakeholder consultation. So I'm expecting to bring a number of bylaws forward at a future committee of the whole or council, but it's effectively drafted, and then it'll probably go through a few iterations.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. All right, any other comments on correspondence? All right, any emergency items? No. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any questions from the gallery?